And we are back once again. It's not Wednesday. You know, I normally come on Wednesday. We're here Thursday night, 8 p.m. Relationship Gumbo Podcast Live Edition. And we're talking about mental health again. This is part 2. So I have a whole panel. We got some extra characters on the panel tonight because I wanted this thing to have some impact. And tonight we're going to talk about something that's really big in general, and it's also, you know, very big for men, and it's also very big for African American men. But generally, people in general, stress. We're going to talk about stress, and we're going to talk about masculinity and what that looks like, you know, past, present, and future. So what I'm going to do is I want to make sure that you share and invite with your friends and family. Make sure everybody that you know is in earshot of this, because it's important information. If it's not about you, it's about someone you love or somebody you work with. Somebody's going to fit in some of these categories. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take 30 seconds to make sure everything is going where it's supposed to go. We are live on Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube at the same time. So stand by.
Okay, everybody wants good love, that's true, I know. Derek Jones about to break it down with the relationship gumbo. Welcome to the podcast. Ain't no doubt we all need this, ayy, cause better relationships need better ingredients, ayy. So if you want better relations, it's about communication, finding love, staying together. We all wanna make it better, yeah. Derek Jones the host, your relationship coach. Thank you all for tuning in. Relationship gumbo, ayy.
All right, so everything looks good. So tonight, like I said, we're going to talk with, this is part 2. We're going to talk about mental health all over again. We get, you know, it's May is Mental Health Awareness Month, but we need to be talking about this all the time. So what I'm going to do, those of you who are new viewers, we are going to do a live podcast broadcast. So what I normally do is I pause for 3 seconds. We start the podcast. And in the middle of the podcast, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to post them in the comments. And if they're pertinent to the topic, I'll address them. At the end of the podcast, I'm going to pause for another 3 seconds, and then we can speak freely. And if you guys have any questions at the end, we can talk about those. But I'm going to get started, not going to waste your time, and we're going to get into it and introduce this panel that I have tonight. So stand by. Welcome to another edition of the Relationship Gumbo Podcast. My name is Derek Jones, and I am your host. I'm a certified life coach and engineer, a strategist, and a mental health advocate. And tonight we have an extra special show. We locked and loaded. We got a whole panel of gentlemen that are ready to share their experiences and how they've dealt with stress. Tonight it's all about stress, mental health. We're going to talk about masculinity. And I'm not going to waste your time. We are going to get right into it. So I'm going to bring up my panel. So give me like 1 second, and I'm going to bring them up and unmute them so I can introduce you to them. And then we're going to get right into the topic. And once again, make sure that you share this out, whether you're listening to the audio or the video. Share this out with your friends and family. It's going to be a lot of good information tonight. So hold on 1 second. I see everyone, but who's missing? Gavin? We're going to get started, and we're going to wait for Gavin to come back. We're missing one person. So hold on. I'm going to unmute everybody. Oh, okay. Everybody unmute yourself at the same time. It said y'all unmute. It said y'all muted yourself. Sorry. So first, I'm going to introduce our panel. I'm laughing because this is the first time I had this many people on at once. So bear with me. I'm trying to get all the tech stuff together. So first, we're going to introduce Jermaine Norman. Welcome, sir. Welcome back again.
Thank you.
Tell people a little bit about yourself. Really brief about yourself. What you do, or even why you're here.
Educator. Just again, trying to educate myself in the community about mental health.
Cool. All right, next we got Kevin Harvey. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you for having me. Kevin Harvey.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, just here to spread love, not corona, and continue the amazing topic we had from last week.
Spread love, not corona. There's Gavin. That's my bad. I didn't see you down there. Welcome, Gavin Morgan. Welcome, sir. Tell people a little bit about yourself and why you're here.
Just to explain, tell a couple stories about how to handle stress. And Gavin, G Rock Morgan. I used to do music back in the days. I stopped, so I'm just here just to join the panel.
Gotcha. We welcome you, sir. This is your first time here. All right.
Sure.
And again, we welcome Mr. Derek Cooper. He is our resident professional. Tell people a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So my name's Derek Cooper. I'm a licensed graduate professional counselor, also a certified addictions counselor. I'm just here to spread information and learn something for myself too.
All right. That's all it's about. Like we recycling here.
Okay.
Andre, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I'm a music producer, and also I own a multimedia entertainment company, and I'm also a mental health advocate.
Cool. So now we're gonna get into the nitty gritty. So guys, everybody mute yourself, and then I'll kind of bring you up, as needed, or you can jump in at any time when you feel like you have something to talk about. So tonight, for the audience, we're going to start off talking about stress, and more importantly, how men deal with stress. A lot of us men tend to, I believe, because of, we talked about on the last show about the stigmas and how men are viewed and not necessarily being seen as the emotional ones or the ones that tend to share more. So especially with stress, I'm going to save me maybe last or close to last, but we're going to just go around the panel and ask each gentleman about how stress has impacted their lives and how they've, maybe a situation that maybe where they didn't necessarily handle it as well. Because the reason why I'm leading with that, normally, someone would say, let's tell us how you deal with stress. I want people to see that there are some things that may happen in your life that may be negative and how that affected you. And then we can talk about whether, like I told the gentleman before the show, some of us still are dealing with how to manage it. So we don't all have a redemption story here. We just want you to understand that this is real and this is what we go through. So I'm gonna start with Jermaine. And what I want you to do, Jermaine, is to just maybe give us an instance, or maybe it's something that you're dealing with currently of some things that stress is affecting in your life, whether it's your family, job, your person, just you in general. So unmute yourself and share what you got.
I would say a lot of the stress that I'm feeling, I'm realizing is internal. So it's how I interpret situations. It could be my kids, it could be my job, it could be anything. And what happens is that situations, circumstances happen, people do what they do, and based on just my perception, I will interpret their actions in a particular way, and then I'll respond without taking time to really think about or giving the other person the benefit of the doubt. So what I'm learning in this particular stage of my life is that everything that people do, they're not doing it maliciously, or they're not thinking about me when they do what they do. That's just my interpretation of their actions.
Right. And so is there any, and just a follow-up question for you, Jermaine, you can come back on. Is there any case, well, I'm pretty sure, ain't none of us young here, where there's a case where that stress has negatively affected those around you or even yourself, like either maybe health-wise or, like I know for a lot of us, probably many times we probably got a novel full of cases, but has there been a point where you realized that stress was so intense that it affected you in a negative way?
Yeah, anger. That was how I deal with stress, is anger.
Yeah.
So if I perceive that the situation is not going, then I would explode. I yell, scream, cuss, fuss. And again, that's not going to get you the results that you want. And so thus people feelings hurt, people shut down, people don't want to respond. So now you don't even really know if you're right or wrong, because now people won't even talk to you because you basically hurt their feelings.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Cool. That's real. We're gonna move right on over to Mr. Kevin Harvey. And I just want you to kind of share your relationship with stress and some situations that might have caused you to have stress and how you deal with it.
Well, I deal with stress, I guess, passive aggressively.
Mm-hmm.
It's somebody else that I feel like Jermaine said, if somebody did something to me or I take it personal, I won't explode, but I hold it in. And then somehow I try to do something kind of, just to kind of get back at them in my own way. So, and it causes a lot of anxiety. Because
Right.
I'm always about, damn, why they do that to me when they was just really living their life and it didn't really affect me the way it affected I thought it did.
Right. Yeah, that's that you and Jermaine have similar stories, but you deal with it, you deal with it differently. And that's why I wanted different people up here, because a lot of us deal with kind of some of the same things, but depending on, maybe our upbringing, our experiences, or some things we dealt with, we deal with the same thing differently. And sometimes most of the results aren't normally a positive result. Sometimes people handle stress with drugs and alcohol and things like that. Like, I can attest to that. Like a lot of people can, like, go to happy hour on Friday and you ask anybody in there why they there. They're like, man, I had a stressful week and I just need to take the edge off. And, and so, and the thing about that is, it's fun to do in moderation, but you got to think about it. The only way that to relieve your stress is to drink.
Yeah.
Right? I thought about that this week. I was like, it's fun and you drink in moderation, but most of those people in there are like, we just want, I had a rough week and I need this. That's, when you sit back and look at it, it's like, so if you didn't have the bar, what would you be doing? So what I'm going to do in rotation, Derek, you're going to go last. I'm going to go before you, just so you know, because I like for you to bring up the rear because you're the professional here. So next we're going to go to Gavin.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You good?
Yeah. So when it comes to stress with me, I can't deal. I can't. It don't work for me. Like I hide it so well, people don't know that I'm stressed.
Right.
It's like, like I say, for example, like death. When my mother died, like back in high school, I masked it to the point to where I don't show any emotion. So my face is always like looks like you know how the Hulk said in the movie the End Game, he said, he's always angry.
Yep.
He never but I'm always happy. That's the problem. I'm always happy, but everybody always makes it seem like I'm mad because I put up this wall.
Right.
I put up this wall to make it look like, yeah, don't come this way or don't mess with me or nothing like that, because it's just like a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
And I can recall back in the days when I was working at Pizza Hut, I don't know if you ever seen those big cans of sardines or greens or industrial things.
Yeah.
I used to go physically and punch all cans back then. I don't do that stuff to today, but
right.
That's how I was dealing with the stress. And then when it comes to my stress, I think I can handle my stress. But when it comes to like family or friends, it's like I'm trying to do as much as I can to help them and not even looking out for myself.
Right. Yeah.
So it just turns into, me sitting down trying to figure out what to do for everybody else.
Yeah.
As far as like, I ain't not saying this, but I just got laid off. But this is the first time ever getting laid off. So I'm just like trying to process that right now.
Right.
Trying to be like, yeah, okay. But I'm still getting paid until you know, I could go good till December, but it's just like this ain't never happened.
Right.
So
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. One real quick follow-up question for you. So with you, because mine is a little similar to yours, but I'll get to mine after Dre. Do you have a way to purge the stress, or do you just kind of feel like you can just take it and just let it sit and it'll eventually go away?
No, I mean, I don't, okay, I'm a person to where I don't need weed, I don't need alcohol. I could be in the house, have alcohol in the house, and don't drink.
Right.
Unless I'm going to somebody else's house, I'll take the whole bottle to that person's house and drink over there, but I'll never drink in my house.
Right.
So I mean, it's kind of crazy, but the way I handled it, I did when I was in Atlanta. When I was living in Atlanta, I did go see somebody, talk to somebody about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they were a little unorganized because they kept switching me with different people, and I don't like telling different people everything. I mean, the same thing. They'll go back and look at the notes, but I want the same person.
Right.
So
yeah, I got you. That and that's once again that a lot of people need to understand that it's not just Gavin, it's not just Jermaine, it's not just the rest of this panel. It's most of us have a relationship with stress, and each of us deal with it in a different way. As you can see, each story is a little different. So now we're gonna go to Dre.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. As far as with me, I would say stress manifests itself actually in multiple ways. From anxiety, dealing with social anxiety, and it's kind of crazy to say that, right? Being in the business that I am, and then also panic attacks, and then probably the most problematic for me is blood pressure. So when I think of those things, and as far as just in general, when you're talking about coping, when I heard you talking about alcohol, yeah, that's a good coping or escape mechanism. That more so, I would say, would only come into play if you're talking about like being depressed more so than anything. But as far as for me, a lot of times these things have manifested itself in different ways as far as family, as we know, especially, you know, being the man in the household and dealing with certain things as far as with finances. In one particular instance, dealing with a teenager that is now a woman. You just imagine that, you know, you having a daughter coming of age, and you can probably kind of imagine some of the issues there. So just imagine that, and then also working your job, and then also trying to be an entrepreneur. So it can kind of, you know, flare up from time to time. For me, I sought assistance as far as therapy, going to see a therapist who kind of gave me some skills as far as with coping. And so when those things happen, as far as with anxiety or panic attacks, what's great now is that I know when it's happening, even with like blood pressure, right? Like my pressure is crazy today. So when these things happen, and the pressure doesn't have anything to do with stress. I ate something I shouldn't have ate, and I should have known better. But I'm at a point now where I can identify what's going on, and that allows me to center myself to then figure out, okay, what is the tool that I need to be able to be okay? So if it's something like with blood pressure, I know I have to stop everything, go lay down. If we're talking about anxiety or panic attack, it's about conditioning my mind in a sense of saying, okay, this is what's going on. This is the period of time. And there's just certain tools that I use to kind of calm myself down. And it happens in a period of time, and I know it's going to go away. And that's kind of like associated with with like my social anxiety. And that's kind of crazy how that began. But I know, depending on what environment I'm in, that it's going to happen. And I know it's going to happen. And it's just like, all right, I have to get through it. And then once I get through it and I know it, I'm okay. But it's just the moment of realizing that you're going through it and the feeling that it creates, you sometimes people, like you said, you can panic and go into a panic attack at that point where you think, oh, okay, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. So I just learned how to process and deal with it. And lastly, I'm sorry I'm taking up a lot of time, but the greatest thing for me is that I'm in a therapy group, and not right now, but I have an accountability partner, and that was probably like the greatest thing for me, where we list these things and we talk things out and we discuss these things amongst people that not necessarily may have the same issues that you have, but it's just something where you have somebody where you have an open dialogue with, and when you walk away from that group, you can come back during the week and kind of like have somebody where you can kind of report and discuss and be open with and discuss those things. So that's helped me out a lot as well.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. So I guess I'm next. So the way for me, and it took me a long time to realize, and it may be because I'm older now, because when I was younger, I felt like I was Superman and I can just take whatever on my back and handle it. And I felt like I had so much patience and all this stuff. And now that patience is, I can't even, it's done. So for me, like differently from like what Jermaine and Kevin talked about, other people kind of maybe stressing you out. For me, I think my stress, I think I put a lot of it on myself, right? So I could have family, I could have work, and I'll want to appease everybody at the same time. And it's like a weight on my back. And I feel like I can carry it. But in reality, like when you sit back, you start to suffer a little bit because it's too much. And you don't want to tell anybody no. You don't want to say, hey, mom, I can't do this today. But because you're like, oh, I'm thinking in my head, my mom's older, I got to do it. Or my daughter needs this, so I got to do it. And my job needs this, and I got to do it. And it's like all in the same day. And it's like all of this is just sitting here. And then tomorrow, it's a repeat. It's a cycle. And it just goes every day. At some point, for me, it's like some of those times, you just like your body physically just wants to like tell you like, look, sit down. And one day you might just go to sleep and be asleep for 12 hours or like for me, realizing what it is now, I know I got to chill and stop, take a breath and say, look, I need time, because if I don't do that, it turns into something else. So like for me, and now that, and this is the ironic thing about COVID and the quarantine. Before COVID and the quarantine, I was the happy hour dude. That was my that's like I talked about earlier. That's me, right? Every couple of weeks, I would have to go and purge it, because if I didn't purge it, it would just sit and it would stack itself. But now with the quarantine, right, all of that stuff is shut down. And even in my house, like Gavin was saying, I got stuff in here and I don't even touch it here. That's crazy, right? So I feel like in a way, I've had to find other ways to deal with it to where I didn't feel like I need that. So it's almost like a detox. And I feel better because of it, because now I'm able to kind of really like sit down and look at myself. And for me, that's huge. Like I'm a social drinker, but I still felt like I needed to be there. I needed to be out. I needed to be there so I could have something else to focus on other than everything else. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. I'm gonna let Derek wrap it up. You can talk about your personal stuff. You can talk about what you heard from all of us. I know it was a lot.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Cool. So going off of what everyone else said too. I think I first recognized my stress was environmental growing up, just because of like neighborhood things and in high school and college and everything, and realizing that it played off a lot of my environment and my comfortability. And like, kind of like what Dre said too, like, like that manifests into anxiety after a while too, when we don't take care of it. And then that becomes like, physical, it becomes our emotions. And then we start living every day in that anxiety. On a professional level of this, I just thinking about how to manage stress a little bit better. Recognizing that stress isn't a bad thing, it's a part of life, the same way like anxiety is just an emotion, and just understanding like, what its purpose is in our life. Like, the same way with being nervous, the same way with being scared of something is to make us aware of whatever's going on in our lives we have to pay attention to. And when we get overwhelmed and we get tired from that, that's when we need to start pulling back. But it's hard to find that line for ourselves because we want to get everything done. We want to make people proud of us. We want to say I knocked out all these things today. And physically, we literally can't. So that's when our bodies start to produce this stress and this anxiety and this doubt and this worry and everything else to start ruminating in our head. And a lot of times what happens to people is they burn out and they get stagnant. And we want to hope and work towards not getting to that place anymore. We can just be more aware of our bodies and what it's telling us, and learning how to down and learning how to take a break. So a couple tips on how to deal with stress. Main thing is that self-care is the most important thing that you will ever do. Also recognizing the acronym HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. If you're any one of those things, whatever, wherever you are, do it. Like if you're hungry, go eat. If you're angry, you got to find an outlet for that, a healthy outlet for that, whether it be talking to somebody, going to the gym, something to get that anger out. If you're lonely, talk to somebody. If you're tired, go to sleep. And it's that simple, but we can overcomplicate things because we feel like we have to do so much. But that's when we're not taking care of ourselves. If one of those 4 things continues to pop up and be a problem for us. The other thing I would say too is it's okay not to be okay. And I think we lose track of that too. We're supposed to be okay all the time. And no, that's not realistic for anybody. And when we're able to just say I'm not in a good space today, and I probably shouldn't talk to people because if I do, I'm stressed out. I might not say the right thing. I might snap. And it's okay to pull back. It's okay to withdraw a little bit so you can take care of yourself. So we're not making situations worse for ourselves and then kicking ourselves because we made a mistake or we made the wrong person mad or things just escalate. So I think those are some tips for that. Also too, one other thing is just listening to our body. Our bodies will tell us more than our minds ever will. Our minds can trick us because we can rationalize things. We can make things up. We can just create stories, the whole 9 yards. And when we're able just to listen to our bodies and see where our stress is lying at, we can kind of figure out how to deal with it a little bit better. Most people hold it in like their shoulders, their back, their neck, even their jaw sometimes. And it's paying attention, when you're clenching your teeth, when is your tongue on the roof of your mouth for 15 minutes? Are you fidgeting? Are you constantly twisting and turning and all these things or whatever? Because that's your body trying to tell you you're stressed. So just some things to pay attention to.
Yeah, that whole physical part, that thing is about as real as it can be these days. I say this every day. Like if I'm feeling a certain way, I'm like, I got to listen to my body now, because if I don't, I can you can literally check out off of stress, and people don't realize that, man. It's so, like I was saying before, we feel like we can put it on our back and handle it, but sometimes doing that could kill you. And I ain't trying to die. I'm trying to be 150. So, so we're gonna segue into the next topic, and I'm gonna let Derek introduce that about masculinity and the angle that we're gonna take that from.
Sure. So with the topic of masculinity, I wanted just to cover what the idea of the idea of being a man today and how that's changed over the course of time. And how that's just affected everybody. How it's affected you guys personally.
Okay, so we're going to start with Jermaine again. And we're just going to talk about how, I guess, the perception of masculinity in your life, how it's kind of directed your life, or what it looks like. To correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, I don't want to steer away from what, the purpose of the topic is. But I think that's what you were saying. How does that perception of masculinity affected you?
So I would say that growing up, most of the men that I were around were liars, cheaters, not honest people. There was a few people that were, So I think as a young adult, I found myself playing a lot of games because that's what I saw by the men that was around me. Then I encountered men in my 20s who were maybe lived their life and were trying to get right. Then they were being honest and forthright. And so it was a struggle to shift from being a liar, being deceitful, to being honest. And so I think ultimately my perception of manhood now at 47 is completely different than it was when I was in my teens, 20s, and even in my 30s. I think a lot of what I thought a man was is based on someone else's perception and not really the reality of those things, which if I'm trying to live someone else's story, going back to the previous topic, it can make it very stressful. And so now it's just learning to be me and be comfortable in my own skin and be able to communicate what I think, feel, or believe with thoughtfulness and respect. And I think that's where I am now. So it's a long list of hurts and pains going through this journey, but most of it was this perception that you had to meet this image or this ideal, and it may not have matched what I was feeling on the inside, but you the adult, so okay. So
yeah, that's definitely real. We definitely and I'll talk about it on my part later about what it's done for me, but it's a lot of what's the word I want to look for, like a carbon cutout of what masculinity is supposed to look like, and we supposed to just fit that mold, and we all different people. Right? People don't think about that. Like, everybody isn't going to be that same archetype of what a real man. Go ahead, Jermaine.
And I'll just add this. And honestly, I'm divorced, and that's probably the number one reason why I'm divorced today, is because of my perception of masculinity going into my marriage, particularly the image of being a man based on what the Bible and the church said. And then that reality didn't play out in the household. And I didn't know or wasn't equipped to adjust to the reality of our relationship based on, in some ways, me not being equipped to be a man and some of those ideals, because I wasn't taught, because I was in a single household with a mom. So it was certain things I just didn't get. And now I'm married. I got a stepchild, and I got to do these things and operate at a level that tangibly I wasn't equipped or educated to do. But I'm supposed to do it because this is what people say you should do.
Yeah, that disconnect is crazy. Go ahead, Derek. I see you.
Jermaine, can I ask you when you recognize that? Like, when did you get to that point and to say that, like, that was the downfall?
After everything was probably in the last 3 years. You know what I'm saying? I think for me, I've always been reflective of my relationships. I always try to grow and be better. So when my marriage ended, I had to ask myself, what part did I play in it failing? And of course, when you leave, it was this blame. It's her, it's her, it's her. And then you not together no more, but you still having them same issues, but other people are saying the things that she was saying to you in different contexts. So you're like, well, dang, you sound like her. And then that's when you start saying, well, damn, maybe it wasn't her, maybe it was me. And then you realize, well, damn, I got to work on myself. And then you start to do the work on yourself. And then you realize that it was things within you that was hindering the connection. And I put on my paper, and I said this a couple weeks ago, I grew up in a survival environment. So if I'm going to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those who know, those who don't know, I was on that physiological and maybe the safety level, and that's it for most of my life. I never got to the love and belonging place. And I think I struggle with that because if you are in a survival mindset, then everything is about not dying. So you try and be in love with someone, but they don't really understand you. You grew up in the ghetto, you got a survival mindset.
Right.
I'm gonna survive. So yeah. To answer your question, within the last 2 to 3 years.
You got a follow up, Derek, or you want to just let it keep going? Okay. All right, Kevin.
Yeah,
you up?
I got one for
Okay,
Jermaine.
Dre.
Jermaine, question for you, brother. You're talking about Abraham Maslow. How close are you to self-actualization for yourself? As far as how do you view, who you are, what you're coming to be?
I'm gonna say it's wild because I'm looking at it as you're talking about it. I still struggle with loving and belonging. But my esteem is where it needs to be. I feel like my self-esteem was really low because of staying on level 1 and 2 for so long. So it's almost like I feel like I don't need level 3. So I'm struggling with level 3, even though I feel like my esteem is where it needs to be, but maybe I'm gonna probably say I'm at level 3. I'm struggling with being on level 3, meaning esteem wise, I esteem myself, but sometimes I don't esteem others, which may be an issue because of the loving, which makes me fall back to level 3. So I'll just say I'm on level 3.
Cool. All right, Kevin, you up?
Okay, yeah. So I think, in my opinion, at 47, I'm still learning how to become a man because of past situations that I put myself in, because I was raised in a 2-parent household. And my father, Ricky Harvey, was a man's man. But me wanting to go outside, dabble in the streets and stuff like that, I started looking up to people in the neighborhood, looking up to them and thinking what they were doing, making money, getting girls, that was being a man. When in actuality, that was the total opposite of being a man. So now, 47, live here with my daughter, right? I think here is 26. And we didn't have the best, we had a pretty good relationship coming up, but me and her mother didn't have the best relationship, right? So I used to do the blame game. Oh man, she won't let me see my daughter, but in actuality, I was the one avoiding a lot of things. So now when my daughter living with me, it's just it's letting me know that it's more to being a man than just having kids, buying your kids things, and showing off for your boys.
Absolutely. I'll talk about that in a minute. I don't want to step on anybody's time. Yeah, that's real. That's a whole. See, this is, ladies and gentlemen, you have to once again look at this panel. Everybody's story is different, but a lot of times they arrive at the same point at some point. Like, we're all the same, but our life experiences mold us in different ways. Each one of our stories is different, but it's almost kind of the same too. Like, I need you guys to understand. Like, I always tell people, we're on this earth to connect with each other, to experience each other, and realize that we're not in this thing alone. And that's what we're here for. Like, I'm gonna keep saying it over and over again because somebody on here needs to hear that you are not by yourself. So we're gonna move over to Gavin.
You hear me?
Yep, you good.
Yeah, so I agree with Kevin. Like, I'm still, I think I'm still learning. I mean, after I go back to when my mother passed, and then it was like a trickle down effect. Like, we lost our house and all that stuff, and then from 92 to like every year, I moved every single year, right? So I had to grow up like fast. Like, my father was still there, but he was still trying to get himself together from losing his best friend. So, I'm like, all right, my sister split apart. I'm still trying to hold it together. And like Kevin was saying, like, I was doing certain things to, people always say they envy your life. You know, I would be going to the clubs, doing this, going here, going there. And with certain things I was doing, like, I go for happy hour. I'd have to go buy an outfit every Friday. It don't matter if it was the clothes, the shirt, pants. It was like shoot everything.
I saw those outfits, brother, too.
Okay. and I would do it constantly, just to, I'm with the boys. I'm like, all right, man, we're gonna go. We're the wolf pack. We're gonna go and hunt, and we're gonna get this shorty. I mean, I look back now. It's some women that got away that I know I would have been married by now. But now I'm in a point in my life that, I've been being honest, being truthful. But it seems to me, I guess the women at our age, I'm 47 too, they don't they don't believe, you know, the fact that you this age, you don't got no kids, you this, you got a good job, all this stuff, and it kind of makes you feel what's the word, I can't think about, your self-esteem goes down,
Yeah.
because you're trying to figure out, like, what the hell am I doing wrong? I'm a good guy, and then it just plays with your head, and you just like constantly still trying to get it together. And I mean, I think I'll be 48 this year. I think I might have breakthrough maybe in the next 2 years, but right now I'm thinking about the next chapter of my life. I'm hoping the next 35 years.
Right. I think I saw Derek. Did I see you, Derek? Yeah, Derek wanted to add.
Oh,
Look, Gavin, my condolences for the loss of your mother when you were young. I know that hurts. If you mind me asking, do you feel like you ever grieved the loss of her? Because I know, like, with masculinity, the perception of masculinity too can come on, like, you're not allowed to cry, like, you're supposed to, like, be sad, get over it, like, the next day. But do you feel like you ever, like, actually went through that process of that?
nah. So yeah, you absolutely right. I never grieved, and my mother or father. Like, the funeral, didn't cry. Then it's like a shock. Till this day, I can't even tell you when the last time I even shed a tear. And it's hard. Like, when my father died, they were like, yeah, come to counseling, come and talk. I didn't trust anybody to talk to them, because I used to talk to somebody, like, somebody like that work with you, and every time I would tell them the story, what's going on in my life. A week later, we get to joning on each other, throw it back in my face, and after that, I shut down. I tell nobody nothing.
Yeah. Did I see you put your hand up, Dre? Or did I miss? Okay, cool. Yeah, that's dude, that's a lot, man. A lot. And I know a lot. I got my a lot too, but
Right.
yeah, and this is where my mind goes with this. When you listen to Gavin, when you listen to Jermaine, when you listen to Kevin, and you're gonna hear Dre, you're gonna hear me, you're gonna hear Derek. But where this goes, and what you've heard you've heard 3 times already, and it's a total of 6 of us up here. I'm still learning how to be a man. Think about that, especially you ladies that's listening. It's no carbon. It's no recipe for this. Like, we go through our lives holding in stuff, trying to be macho, trying to be this image of what we think we should be, whether it's society, whether it's what, you know, other people think we should be. And when you finally get to the point of enlightenment where you feel like you got to reflect and try to figure it out, look at how old we are up here. Like, this is real. This is really real. Like, and I can say that for myself. I didn't even really start looking at the why until I was over 40. Right? Your whole, I mean, we gonna live to be 150, but basically your whole life, you trying to figure it out. And think about it like this, audience. If I'm spending my whole life treading water, not sure who I am or what type of man I need to be, but I'm in a relationship with somebody, what does that look like? Think about that. We trying to figure it out. And now we in a relationship and we not sure what type of man we need to be, but we know we want to be in it or we want to be whatever. And then you do the dysfunctional things and you're trying to figure it out. And now you got a label on your head. You the bad guy. You the this, you the that. By the time you grow up, you're like, dang, look at my life. Like, I got to do better. We don't do that at 25. We're doing that at 40, 47. And go ahead, Jermaine. I see you.
So I'm looking at my thing, and my little sister, she just posted, she was like, oh my God. She said, I got 2 sons. So she just heard what you said and just what we just said, and was just like, oh my God, my baby boys. And so what I just told her was, I said, one of the things, and Derek, Cooper, you can add this for Evelyn. But what I said to her is, I think, at least for me and what I'm hearing from y'all, we didn't have environments where, what I told her is, create an environment where it's okay for your son to talk through his issues in a safe environment, not being judged. If he say something inappropriate, where he not gonna get shut down, cussed out, whatever. For most of us, when we do try to share, we get reprimanded for sharing if it's a little raw, if it's a little inappropriate, and it causes us to pull in and not want to share. And then it stunts our growth in the long term because we don't have a safe place for us to be able. And I'll just say this quickly. That's why that boy down in Georgia was out there all over the place. He was looking for a safe place. So if you look at when he got shot, and now they're showing a video of him when he was in the park, he was trying to find a safe place to, like you said, self-care. He was in the park rapping, right? He was going for a run. So he was just trying to find a place to relieve stress. And then he found stress.
Yeah. Derek, you want to add anybody want to add anything to that before we move on?
The one thing I'll add to that is, Jermaine, I agree 100% with everything you said. And just making sure that your son knows how to say I love you. I think those are very important things because, like, I feel like young boys aren't taught how to express their emotions. And, like, you know, if they cry, if they say I love you, things like that, like, they're looked at differently, or, like, you know, like, I don't even know how to put it in words at this point, but, like, it's not masculine to say, like, those kind of words, especially, like, your friends, too. So I think when that's taught and that's encouraged, and, like, you know, you create that safe space for them, and you say, like, you know, be open, be free, say whatever you got to do. This is your space to be. I work with several, like, teenage boys down to, like, 5 years old. And that's my main thing with them is like feel free to say whatever you want. I'm not going to judge you. And they feel comfortable with doing that. So it's just, it's ensuring that they have that kind of space so they can just feel free and that anxiety's gone and they can just say how they feel.
All right, Dre, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. First, let me say this. Thank you, Jermaine, Kevin, Gavin, everybody, for your stories. While you guys were speaking, I kind of wanted to kind of write some things down. And wow. Okay, I'm gonna try to get through this and not try to take a lot of time. But when you talk about as far as masculinity, I think for me, like that ideal that comes from, you know, my father, and I was in a two-parent household. You know, one of the things that I realized as far as with my father was, of course, that he was a provider. And then also with him, you know, there were negative things that I'm not gonna speak about, but ironically, a lot of the things that I saw as a man now, I've kind of emulated, you know, especially with coping and defense mechanisms. So you know, that's really crazy that, you know, you kind of repeat a lot of times what you see, and and what makes it even more interesting is that I said, you know what, I'm not going to be like that, and in a lot of ways, I kind of became that, and so you know, I've worked over the years, you know, with those issues, but also for me, what a lot of people don't know is like my father had an accident when I was 15 years old, so he became a quadriplegic, and so that kind of forced me to really step up, right? So now you're talking about you are the man, you know. So you know, my father can't do those things that, you know, he would do around the house. So you got all of that put on you, and then my father was like in the hospital for like what, a year or two. So then it's like now it's me and my mom, and so you know I had to deal with a lot of stuff, and it was really interesting because I blocked out a lot of stuff, and like one time I was like out, and it just was so powerful. I had to go to a bar, man, and I was just like I had to clear my head, and then when I went home, I was just crying, just because I just remembered a lot of things, but you know, but taking on that and understanding as far as that as a man, I knew that it was important to be a provider. But one of the things that I didn't know was being affectionate. And so over the course of, you know, like you said, you know, my late 30s and 40s, trying to learn as far as affection. And then understanding also, again, we talk about those stressors. And so um, now the things that you saw as far as being a man, being cool and all of that, a lot of those ideals that you have in your head as far as what, you know, a man should be, they don't work anymore. And so that's what also caused a lot of stress. And I had a lot of friends that were dealing with the same thing that I didn't know, and talking with them. You know, I had friends that had heart attacks. I had somebody that I know that was an acquaintance that, you know, died from a stroke. You know, so you just really don't know, and so you have to understand as far as how to deal with things. And so again, when we talk about those coping, you know, mechanisms as far as drinking, I mean, my dad was doing that. I was doing the same thing. But what I would say is that I've learned to kind of like trust that instinct and that feeling, and so that's, you know, helped me. And then as far as, you know, being a parent, um, I was a parent at a young age at 20, so it was kind of like on the go. I always told my daughter, you know, we kind of, you know, we grew up together. So Um, but speaking about parenting and what you're saying, I think that the one thing that you're saying as far as like as our fathers, and I talked to my dad about this. It's like, you know, this is what I knew, so this is all I could tell you, and you know, I'm dealing with my circumstances, and so um, the presumption or the way that it was projected, I felt that my father didn't accept me, you know, with certain things as far as, you know, athletic wise, you know, I wasn't playing football or basketball, but I was great at soccer, right? And you look at soccer now, right? So I stopped playing soccer because it wasn't cool, but I was a beast at it. I just stopped. But anyway, just saying like things like that, you know, a lot of times as a father, you know, you want your child to emulate things that, you know, you couldn't, you know, they couldn't be, you know, they want you to be that image, so you fight that a lot of times. And as you get older, you'll, at least for me, I struggle with that. So I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my points. um but yeah, so I think that coming into your own and becoming more self-aware, you realize that these things, you know, something isn't right, it doesn't connect. So you know, I want to live and I want to be here And so that's one of the things that forces, that forces change, or change is going to change you. And so it's like still an everyday struggle and battle, because like when you talk about like even with like past and previous relationships, and even with current situations with friends, I learned that I had this defense mechanism, which is like the way I may bark back or whatever, and it all went back to like my childhood. So, but recognizing that and trying to grow from that, right? Because what I've learned, and I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but it's like for me, it's a sense of warmth and comfort when being defensive, and like I have a mechanism. I'm not gonna get into all, but I found comfort because that's what I knew. But taking effort in changing how you are and how you deal with things, it takes time, and it's still constantly like a reminder. But you can do it. They always say, you get set in your ways, and you do, but you gotta look at yourself and say, okay, what is it that you want, right? So, you know, through failed relationships, and then also as a parent, you just learn a lot of different things. So, I mean, that's where I'm at with it. So, it's just continuously, trying to, grow, because once you think you want something and something, it's something that will like bring you back and like, okay, I need to do more. And even now I'm like, yeah, I need to do more. So, it's just a constant reminder. So yeah. Derek, your mic's muted.
No, say you're muted, man.
Yeah.
My bad. Anybody have any other commentary on that? If not, I'm gonna go. Then Derek's gonna go, and then we're gonna wrap this up. We good? Okay. So for me, masculinity, I think, society had when we were growing up, watching TV and just seeing how people move, there was kind of a mandate of this is how you should be. But I think in my life, I didn't necessarily look at that as like I want to be like that person on TV, or I wanted to be like whatever. I still kind of was myself. It didn't really hit me hard until I started dating. And then the expectation of either society or the women I dated was like, nah, you need to be like this. And that's where the real man is. And so when I heard it so many times, because I'm not, a linebacker, I'm not that type of dude. I'm the hug you, I love you type of dude. So they was like, nah. So because I heard that so many times, I had to become something else in order for me, I felt, to even have somebody. So I had to change to become the cutout of what they thought it should be. And then guess what? They loved it. And I was like, that's what y'all want? But inside, it wasn't me, for real. And I had to learn that over time, that it's almost like a jail sentence when you can't be you, and you trying to be what they telling you. Oh, nah, a real man, he know how to change an engine out of a car. I'm like, nah, I'm the computer dude. I can't do that. I can fix your VCR, your TV, but I don't know that's not me. So I guess I'm not a real man, right? It was like these hard lines that you had to fit or you wasn't it. So I tried my best to fit that, push back who I really was, just for me to be able to be in something. And I was somewhere in my 30s until I realized, like, look, I'm not happy. I'm not happy. And once I really self-actualized and really said, you know what, I'm going to project out who I am. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. And I'm going to keep it moving. That's when the sky opened up for me. And I was like, I could really care less. And that's my relationship to like what masculinity was for me. Like I didn't have a bunch of uncle because all my family is in like I'm in the DMV area. My mom and father are from South Carolina, so all my uncles and stuff was down there. So it was just me and you know my immediate family, and I was just out there. So all I had was TV, and then what everybody else thought I should be. That was all I had, and so I either had to be that or not. I didn't. There was no gray area for me. So once I really grew up, and I was like, you know what, I'm not that guy. If this is that guy, I might be right here, but I'm not up here. And you're gonna have to accept that. And once I got that confidence to just say this is me, then I was able to kind of discard folks and was like, I'm not that guy. Sorry, this is how I'm gonna be. And that's kind of how I got to the point where I am now. I mean, whether the goal is marriage or whether the goal is just being a happy individual or both, you know, I had to learn how to get there because people wasn't going to dictate who I was going to be. I hated that about that. Just it's like you in a cage and you're like, dang, this is not really how I feel on the inside. So that's my story. I feel a lot better now because I don't really care about what other people think. It's a freeing feeling.
Very true, brother. Very true.
So we're going to let Derek Cooper close us out. Any comments you have about anything we have to say, any personal stuff, and you know, we can just close out this particular topic, and then I must shut everything down, and we may do a part 3 on another topic one day. We'll see. I mean, this was good.
Hey, real quick, I'm sorry before Derek you speak. This was very therapeutic, and I'm glad that I met you, brothers. Very, impactful. And this is, even though we're communicating and sharing this, this has been therapy for me as well.
Yeah.
That's
same
dope.
here.
Yeah, man. For me, so I think a cultural aspect. I think I saw somebody put that in the comments too. It's like the cultural side of this, and being like first generation West Indian and having parents that weren't really accustomed to like the American culture and walking into the idea of masculinity. No one knew what they were doing. Like flat out, no one knew what they were doing at all. And I remember my dad trying to teach me lessons at a young age and hearing them out and understanding why the lesson is important, but also not seeing the follow through on his side. So I was like, okay, I'm supposed to listen to you, but you're not listening. You're not listening to your own advice. So that made it difficult for me. And I haven't had my father in my life since I was 19. So like, in the middle of college, I start winging it on my own at this point. And I'll be honest with you guys too. I didn't go into college thinking I was going to be a therapist. I had no idea. I wanted to kind of follow the path of like, I want to play sports or like, I want to be a sports broadcaster, like being on ESPN or something like that. I thought that was my idea of what I wanted to do because I feel like that would have made my father proud or like other men in my life proud doing something like that. And then I stumbled into this psychology field and being the only guy in there, I'm like, all right, okay, again, my idea of masculinity, I don't know what it really even means or what it even like, what it's supposed to look like. And I'll say like for the amount of self-exploration and introspection that I've done over the course of my life, I'm young, but I'm like almost 30, but I feel like I've done a lot of work in my mid-20s. I got into a point where as long as you're self-actualized and you're authentic with yourself and you can follow through with what you say and you set out for yourself and you have goals, that's your man. Like that's all it really takes. It's not some complicated, like, you have to be tough. You have to be macho. Like, you can be the computer guy and still be looked at the same way as a guy that's like 6'6" and can dunk a basketball. Like it doesn't have to be two different playing fields. I think the other part too is I think a lot of guys grow up being nonchalant and like, stone-faced. And I think this was something Gavin was saying earlier, and people look at that a certain way. And it's really like, we don't know how to feel. Like, we don't know how to actually express the emotion. So yes, it comes off as being nonchalant. It comes off being bored. It comes off coming off arrogant or whatever it may be. It was like, no, this person does not know how to express that emotion and they're doing what they know. It doesn't excuse the behavior itself, but it gives it a reason why instead of like trying to throw other assumptions and whatever else on it. So it's the perception of it itself, and that's why I wanted to bring up this topic too. Like the perception of it itself is so skewed to people, and they don't understand that. Like like I think someone said it earlier. Like all of us sitting here as Black men, but we're all so different and come from different places, and we relate, right? Like it isn't about like fitting this one ideal, the carbon copy idea of what it's supposed to look like. Like no, you can be individual, be yourself, and still be looked at as a strong, powerful like Black man. And I think there's power in vulnerability. Like I feel like you should be able to be vulnerable. I mean, crying every day, that's one thing. But I think you should be able to be vulnerable with yourself and with people in your lives so they know what's going on with you, because we can't save everybody. And I think that's the plight that Black men carry a lot too, is the fact that we feel that we have to carry everything on our backs and save everybody. We have to save the entire Black race. And it's just not possible. It's just not. And I think when we're able to, like, either delegate, we're able to be a part of it instead of trying to lead blindly. I feel like we can do a lot more. I feel like we can do a lot more for our community and for ourselves as well too. We don't need all that pressure on our backs. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I got enough pressure. But yeah, so I want to read a couple of the comments before we close out, just so you guys can see what people are saying. Victoria Stanley from Facebook says, "Thanks everyone for sharing your story. I really learned a lot. Keep pushing for greatness and stay blessed." Michelle Ford from Facebook says, "We appreciate you, Kings. Very powerful." Perry Hula Hoop Queen from Periscope says, "This is great, Kings." Let's see here. I just want to make sure I get a few of these. I'm not going to go all the way. Alexis Green from Facebook says, "We fear things that make us uncomfortable, which is easy for us to gravitate to the familiar behavior." Alexis Green also says, "A lot of us as parents unconsciously try to live through our kids, not realizing our kids are little people who have their own dreams, goals, etc." That's a big one right there. That's huge. That is huge. And a lot of us, I think, our dreams got stifled because we wanted to please our parents so much, not even just with sports, but just things like that. But just like, you might not have wanted to go to college, but they forced you to go, or, certain stuff like that. And you might have wanted to be a barber or something, and you was like, "Mom, I want to be a barber." Like, "No, you're going to get that degree in business." And you sit on that for a long time. You get in the workforce and all of that, and that thing is still, it's still gnawing at you. And it could have been, a situation where the parent could have said, "Well, go ahead and try that for a couple of years and see what happened." A lot of us didn't have that option. And so it's very important, especially those of us on here that have kids and people that's in the audience that have kids. Like, you got to listen to them. We don't know everything, but what I do know is they definitely are intuitive. They pay attention and they let you know what they love and what they hate. And we can't keep putting that boot on their neck, telling them you better be this. As long as they're not doing nothing to hurt anybody, just let them be who they are. Bonaventure from Facebook says, "The older you get, the more you realize that what you don't understand about life outweighs what you understand. You're a student of life till you die." Yeah, I think we all figured that one out. We all figured that one out. I'm gonna go ahead and it's a lot more that came from not really, but there's a few more other comments, but I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. If anybody has anything else, final words before we leave, and we're gonna get out of here. Like I said, if any of you guys want to come back and do a part 3, let me know.
I think Derek got something.
Oh yeah, Derek, go ahead.
Really quick, 2 book recommendations. Daniel Coleman, Emotional Intelligence. Is not a little book, but it's very good to learn just how to communicate your emotions. And the other one is Tuesdays with Maury. It's a very short book, but it simplifies just a way to live life as a minimalist. I think it's a good read. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Cool. So you guys check those 2 books out. Emotional Intelligence is, for me, just understanding the emotions is life-changing. So you gotta. I always tell people, first and foremost, if you feel like you need to seek out a therapist, counselor, if tonight doesn't show that we all got things that we need to kind of discuss, talk about, share, this is living proof right here. And everybody's story is different, but we all aspire to be better. We all aspire to do better, treat people better, and the whole nine. And sometimes you need some assistance. We don't always have I always say, the toolbox and the tools to do it. We started out with no tools, right? We started out with an empty toolbox, and still is the toolbox still empty when you're 40. You still got to try to figure it out. And sometimes you got to find somebody who may be more, they may have some tools for you to put in that box, like a Derek Cooper or someone that's a professional in the area. It's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know, or I'm not okay, as Derek alluded to earlier. So, let me make sure that I see another comment here. Alexis Green says, thank you, Black Kings. You are definitely appreciated. Jermaine, you got something?
So 2 things. I would just say, if you feel like you need counseling, I would just message Derek, and then he can connect you with Derek Cooper and get you access to some licensed professionals, right? And then I think the thing that Andre was saying earlier is having accountability partners or someone who's like-minded, who's trying to grow, helps you to stay motivated to continue to grow in these little areas. So even if you don't go to counseling and you're not ready for that, getting with people who you trust will hold you accountable and you share out is another good way to at least start that therapeutic process, where you could just say, I'm struggling with this. And I know in my old church, we used to have something called cell group. And it would be a group of men about this size, maybe a little bigger, no more than 10. And we would meet every 2 weeks. And what we would do is we would talk about particular issues that we may be struggling with. And then we would hold each other accountable over those 2 weeks. We would call, check in. So I think that's kind of what Andre was talking about earlier with the accountability partner. Sometimes you just need to know somebody got your back and they're going to help you when you always helping other people.
Yeah, that's true. I'm gonna piggyback off of that a little bit, but you got to think about it. And I'm just talking to the man. Well, first of all, Bonaventure says, suggestion for a future topic: Africans and African Americans talk about the elephant in the Black community. Africans and African Americans, the elephant in the Black community. Yeah, that we can. We might. I'm gonna think about that one. That's a loaded topic. We're gonna step on some toes on that one, because I know exactly what you're talking about. But I'm not gonna touch it on this show. That would just.
That's my frat brother, man. So he's like a professor. So he's
right.
He's a very intelligent guy. But yeah, we can talk about that offline.
So just to piggyback off of what Jermaine was saying, like, you really, when we talk about accountability partners, when we talk about just even sharing things that you're going through, I would probably say most of us don't have that, right? Non-judgmental communication, whether it's in your relationship, whether it's with your friends. You with your friends, you're only going to talk about certain things, but you're not going to really talk about things that hurt you or stuff you might be going through. So you just you really got to think about a safe haven for you to be able to get this off, right? And that could be in counseling. If you have a friend or a family member that you just talking about it helps. Everybody on this panel can tell you tonight helped. And everybody had a different story. Everybody had a different story. And just being able to talk it out, now we're all gonna get off of here and reflect on that. I don't even have to ask them that. That's just how powerful just even talking it out. We're not even talking about going through stages and steps and doing all kind of stuff. Just share it. And once you share and you start to realize that there is something that you need to talk about or whatever, then you can say, you know what, I might need help. I might need to go talk to somebody and really map it out so that I can not keep repeating the same cycle over and over and over again. So on that note, I'm going to close down the podcast portion and we're going to get out of here. We normally do a little like after thing, but we're not going to do that tonight. It's getting a little late. So I thank you guys. Everybody on the panel, I appreciate you guys for coming in, showing up, showing out, sharing your story. I know that we helped some people tonight, and there's going to be people that get on the replay. Make sure everybody that's listening, watching, share this out with everyone you know. It's a lot of information here, especially the men, your sons. We all need to be heard. We all need to share, and we all need to grow. So on that note, I would say good night, and we will see you guys next week. Have a great night.
All right.
All right, guys. Podcast is over. Anybody got any last minute comments in the comment section? And we're going to get out of here.
I got one comment. I can't wait for Andre and Gavin to get together, put an album together.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. There
I'm working on something. I'm working on something right now. So
all I'm saying is Gavin came on and said he was a music producer. I mean, Andre said he was a music producer. And Gavin was like, yeah, I used to do some music. I was like, all right, put them together.
There it is.
Hey,
it's gonna be out by the end of the year.
Okay. Well, if you need me, man, just hit up there.
Yeah, hit me up, man. That might be a good connect.
All right.
Matter of fact, I know it is. So on that note, guys, we're going to get off of the live. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
All right, you brothers stay blessed, man.
All right.
All right.
Okay, everybody wants good love, that's true, I know. Derrick Jones about to break it down with the relationship gumbo. Welcome to the podcast. Ain't no doubt we all need this, ayy, cause better relationships need better ingredients, ayy. So if you want better relations, it's about communication, finding love, staying together. We all wanna make it better, yeah. Derrick Jones the host, your relationship coach. Thank you all for tuning in.